Welcome to the Leafy Podcast, helping real estate investors and entrepreneurs grow. Say hello to your hosts, Jennifer Glagoric and Brian Price, founders of Leafy Legal Services, teaching you how to protect your assets, grow your business, and manage your wealth. Let's start the show.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Leafy Podcast. Thank you so much for being on with us today. And we have another amazing show with a brilliant guest with us today. So I'll go ahead and introduce our hosts so we can get started. Today we have Jennifer and Brian from Leafy Legal Services on the line with us. Jennifer is the COO of the company and Brian is the CEO. So thank you both for being here and hosting with us today. How are you doing today? Hey, Jennifer.
Hey, I'm doing great, and I'm doing very good. And hello, Leafy Legalers, however we're going to call everybody that listens to us. Actually, it's Leafy Podcasters. Yes, that's what it is. Anyway, I forget. It's a Monday when we're doing this, so I have Monday brain, just FYI. But we do have an incredible guest today, and she's fun because she has a big tech background, but then she also invests in her own homes. And she happens to be the host of one of the coolest podcasts, the Richer Geek podcast. So she shares information, ideas, what people are in tech are doing to be smarter with money so their money works for them, which I just love that. You know that we have a big theme about that right now. So before we're going to give her the third degree like we always do, now I'm just going to go ahead and introduce her. So here, welcome the incredible Nichole Stohler, Nichole of the Richer Geek podcast. Hello, Nichole.
Hey, Jennifer, Brian, and Tammy. It is so great to be here with you today.
Awesome. Yeah, we appreciate you taking the time to be with us today. And why don't we just kind of get your background and how you got into the Richer Geek and how that all kind of came about?
Great question. So a couple of things. I still work full-time in tech. I love it, especially right now with what's going on in the world with COVID-19. I feel like the tech community, there are so many resources, brain power, computing capability. We're bringing all that to bear. And I love being a part of that. I also believe that it's important to be what I would call a W-2 entrepreneur. So you work, to me, if you work in tech, this is an awesome job, right? And you get to be part of a really evolutionary, very changing, fast dynamic industry. It's also important to find ways to make your money work for you. And I believe that you need to own or invest in a business. And I mean, I know that, the stock market is business. I think the stock market's important, but I think that you need to be doing something more locally where you're involved and somehow participating in that as an entrepreneur or a semi-absentee type of entrepreneur.
Cool. That's awesome. And I actually was an engineer for 13 years, so I know exactly where you come from in tech. I actually call myself a recovering engineer. So, but that's really cool. I think it's pretty interesting. So, so you still work your full-time job, you're investing. Are you mostly just doing real estate, or are you doing other investments, or how did you kind of getting into the investments that you're doing right now?
So we actually are hotel investors. So we do have some homes, but our path to becoming hotel investors started with failure way back, 20 some years ago. And then my husband going to work in property management so we could learn the business. And then we actually were more in the multifamily, small apartment complex space, and then transitioned into hotels. And then we ended up liking hotels so much that that's really where we focus. And my husband runs that portfolio along with our management companies and our operations team. And then I also, we also have houses, and the other piece that I'm a strong believer in is, like I mentioned, passively investing in. So we invest in medical startups, those types of other unrelated industries, because I also like a little bit of diversification.
Oh, okay, cool.
So, well, tell me a little.
Yeah.
I'm just snagging this away
Go
from
for
Brian.
it.
Who's good. So anyway, so I want to find out. So you're doing a multifamily. So you're doing a little apartment complexes and different things like that. How did you make the leap from that to hotels? And what was it specifically for you guys that made you go, "Wow, hotels is really going to be our jam. We like it so much better." So why was that?
Yeah. So
What was in there?
Yeah, so we did enjoy multifamily and we still like multifamily, but what we saw is that we received an unsolicited offer for one of our apartment complexes, and the person who was making the offer was under a 1031 exchange. I don't know if you guys cover that on
Yeah,
the
we did.
show. Okay. All right. So that particular person was pretty anxious to buy that apartment complex and came back 3 times, and finally on the third time we accepted the offer. The challenge then is now we're under a 1031 exchange and a deadline to find property, and we could not find property that met our investment criteria that was in the multifamily space. We simply were seeing that prices were too high, the cap rates were low, the investment return was going to be low. We didn't feel like we were finding properties that had value add opportunities. Most of them had already been repositioned in the markets that we were looking at. So we had previously, about 2 years prior, we had been networking with someone who was in hotels. And at the time, we were originally planning to invest in a brand new build. And that ended up not happening, but we still had an ongoing dialogue and relationship. So when we accepted that offer, we went back to the person in hotels who's a 20-year hotel veteran, so has that experience. And we said, hey, do you know of any good hotels? Could we start looking at some numbers? And he knew of a few off-market opportunities. We looked at those, and the numbers did make sense to move forward in that particular space. And he was kind of a part of that original purchase and helping us get started.
Wow, I love that. I love the fact that you ended up going, okay, let's go forward with a 1031. We'll just do a 1031. And then through this comedy of errors of ups, panic, you were forced to think outside the box and just go, okay, we've really got to look at shake our network tree a little bit to try to make this work. And it ended up launching you into something that now that you love, because, sometimes it's in life or any type of entrepreneurial thing, it's when a window closes or a door closes and then something else will open up if you just keep on being positive and persistent about it. So I love that story. A whole bunch. And why do you, going back to your W-2, why do you talk so much about why being a W-2 entrepreneur is an excellent way? Is it just because of the stability of that, or because you just think everybody needs to diversify if they're W-2, or both?
I think it is important to have multiple income streams. The audience that I'm speaking to on my podcast is the tech audience. So these are folks that have higher incomes. We don't cover things on the podcast. First of all, we don't really cover financial basics. I'm just going to assume everybody already has the financial basics. And we also don't cover, I would never run a episode that says how you can buy property with no money, because one, I believe you need money. You do need money to buy property.
Yeah.
And what I'm really saying is, how do you take your income and make sure that you're doing the right things, that you've got the right buckets? I believe 100% in maxing out your 401k. Yes, I believe in maxing out your IRA. You should do those things, but that's not enough, and you need to do more. And then if you are investing in a business, and one of the things I'll say on the show is, even if you have just one rental house, that's a business. And Jennifer, you and I talked about, you set up the right entity structure. That is a business. Now, there are tax benefits to that. You have an incremental income stream. And especially if you're buying a good, solid, B-class single family home property in the right area of the country and where economic growth is happening, you just can't go wrong. You can't. Now, it's some work, right? And you might have to find a good property management company. And I'm not saying it's easy, but I think that it's really important to have that diversified income stream.
That's cool. That's very cool. And so probably someone that's making six figures or has a pretty good professional career is usually where you kind of recommend someone stay there and then just invest outside of it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Most of the people I talk to love their jobs. They just want to continue to try and get ahead, and business is a way to do that. Yeah,
that's great. When it comes to, investing in different parts of the country, you kind of mentioned a little bit, what kind of parts of the country at this point are you kind of seeing that is good places to invest, especially with the pandemic that we're in right now?
Yeah, and that's a great question, because before COVID-19, we ourselves had our 20-point investment criteria. We were looking to buy another hotel, and we were very clear on what we would call economic drivers and state dependencies and what's happening. And a lot of those have changed as a result of COVID-19. But I will say, from the get-go, we look for, one, a business-friendly climate. Like, how does the state look at landlords and tenants, as an example? What are the rules? How difficult is it to go through some of the processes you might have to if you're going to evict someone? So this is really fundamentally important. Same thing with hotels. How business-friendly is the state itself? How many people are coming to the state? So is there economic growth? Are there jobs? Those kind of stable types of things. And then, what historically has that area done in the country, especially looking at the Great Recession and the trends there. Although, again, with COVID-19, we have a whole new playbook that nobody has ever anticipated or expected, and that does change some of the criteria as well.
Okay. So when you're talking, I'm thinking California's out, Arizona would be a good one, Florida would be a good one, because California is so it's so difficult. Even no matter what you own there. I mean, they just really hammer. Business is really hard. I mean, Brian lives in the Southern California area, and I'm just like, man, you just read the news, and it's a difficult climate. I was going to ask you, because of, I call it the Rona, because I want to be cool, right? Because of the Rona. But you have hotels that you're getting hammered right now. Nobody's even allowed to be it. I know that we here in Galveston, Tillman Fertitta's here. Like, I know his parents, I know, my son's dad used to be a waiter back in the day at the yacht club where his parents came in, and they're the nicest people on the face of the planet. I know people don't think that of Tillman, but I swear his parents are the sweetest couple ever, and they are nice to everybody. But I was amazed that he finally said, okay, we can't have people in the hotels, because he was at the bitter ender, that no, we're going to wipe things down. It's fine. They're already separated in their rooms. What are you finding with all your business? Like, how are y'all weathering this right now?
It's such a great question, and objectively to be able to look at the different demographics from different hotel types. And that's what I mean about changing our criteria now as a result of COVID-19. So let me share a few things. In Arizona, hotels are considered critical infrastructure. So our hotels are still open if we choose to have them open. We have hotels that are in Metro Phoenix area, closer, more competition, but primarily, and we have hotels a little bit further out, but still kind of in that metro area. We've primarily been in the select hotel space, or select service. And what that means, or limited service. That means that a hotel would be a good value hotel, a branded hotel, so it is part of a franchise. It would have free Wi-Fi, some type of free breakfast, a fitness center, a pool, and that's it. There's not going to be a restaurant, there won't be a bar, they won't have a spa, right? So those are the different levels of different types of hotels. Now, prior to COVID-19, the things that we wanted in our next hotel were, we wanted conference rooms. We wanted potentially food and beverage, but we wanted to have that outsourced to a third party. We wanted economic drivers that included an airport, university, and major employment centers. Okay, now during COVID-19, airports practically shut down. Universities have sent students home. They're not even having commencement, like none of those things that would be major drivers.
Yeah.
And then, of course, businesses, they're not having their teams travel. So then that leaves you to say, well, then what's left? Well,
Hospitals.
who is traveling? Nurses that are part of the traveling nurse system, trucking companies, truckers,
Yeah.
waste and medical waste disposal type of, and sanitization companies. And in Arizona, we still have construction happening. So construction crews. So there's 5 sectors of the industry that are still critical and are still, like of the travel industry, that are still traveling. So then what does that mean? Where do they historically stay? Well, they're going to stay in a value limited service type of hotel. They don't really need a conference facility. So that completely changes what we want. It also is important to be with that type of traveling base near a hospital or near a major highway. And so that changes everything. So now you don't want some small high-end boutique hotel in the middle of nowhere that actually performed really well during the last recession, but is not performing well during COVID-19.
Yeah. It's interesting. Yeah, so trucking routes, also they're shorter stays too, right? They only stay probably 1, maybe 2 nights, if that, and then they're off.
Yes.
That is interesting. I can't wait. I can't wait to tell my best friend about the show, because she's a boutique hotel consultant. So all of her, she was on a project, and so she does the sales and booking people. And so when it first happened, I was like, you need to get familiar with Zoom and webinars, and you need to see if you can keep those book conferences on the books and cut them a deal, and that you will handle everything that they need for, having it, just not having it there. Like, try to be creative, right? Because what are you going to do now? Everybody can't go. And at that time, they were just canceling. There wasn't the orders. There were no orders in place for them to quarantine and all that. So I know that they're having a really hard time, doing sales change-ups and everything that they have to do. It's weird though. I wonder if, and maybe you'll know, I'm going to ask you, so you're in this industry. Do they feel like this is just a one-off, or are the people you talking to saying that, no, this is something that we're going to have to plan for a while? So now are you going to diversify your portfolio to traditionally good hotels and then these other backup, I guess, hotels if we get this again or something like this again?
I think it's such a great question, and we are very active. There's a couple of very large industry groups that put on. There's probably a webinar you could attend every single day if you wanted to hear about what's happening in the industry. It's pretty cool to see the support across the industry. But there's all kinds of different predictions. There's predictions as to what part of travel might come back first. There's predictions as to how we need to constantly, moving forward, assure guests on the cleanliness of the hotel, which already had certain standards. If you're part of a brand, you have to pass inspection, but now we add, more frequent or more higher levels of cleaning. But I don't know if it's a great question. I think that for us, it absolutely changes what we want to buy now. It does, because we say, okay, we wanted those conference rooms. Well, those are some of the hardest hit hotels. The ones that had major, 1,000 rooms for a big major conference, and then they just cancel the whole conference. You can't make that up. Right. So we realize, okay, we're pretty good being in the limited service. We're pretty good serving the value. We just need more hotels instead of one bigger, continue to go to bigger hotels. Right. So yeah, it absolutely changes our approach.
I know in the travel industry, I do have a cruise planners franchise as well. Now it's kind of my retirement thing. This is what I do right now, but I still get the emails, and I'm I'm telling you, the cruise industry, they're reeling, and the inclusives reeling. And every day, you're right, no matter what industry you're in, every day there is a new webinar, there's a new thing from Carnival. They are trying to figure it all out. And it's just, part of it is interesting. I'm very curious to see how they're going to be able to recover the cruise industry, but they will, because the people who love cruises, they'll just put, bags all over them. They'll still go. They love it. They love it. But it'll be interesting to see how it morphs and how it changes it, especially on things like that are beloved by the people who love them, right? So how are they going to do it and keep what people love? It's just a lot of change. It's interesting times. We are lucky to live in interesting times, right? I know you had a question, Brian. I heard you. Or was I wrong? You just went blank.
Oh, I don't know. Man. Okay. Well,
sorry.
What would be great to do is let's switch to the Richer Geek. I'd like to hear more about that and what you're doing there, and how you're helping people and all the services you guys are doing.
Sure. So the Richer Geek is a play on the fact that my audience are people in tech, and then the goal to provide ideas and inspiration for making your money work for you.
Yeah.
I don't believe that real estate is the only thing that people should do. So when I went to start the podcast, I really wanted to bring a cross section of different ideas. And there were a lot of people I already knew in my network that owned some type of business. And I reached out to those folks, and I felt like I wanted to tell those stories. So what I do on the podcast is I try to have really 3 types of episodes. I have someone in tech who is doing something, like they owned an Orange Theory franchise, or they have real estate investments. And I want them to share a little bit about what that's been like, what was good, what was bad, how did they balance it while working full time, and why did they go into that type of business in the first place. So that's one type of episode. The second is where I have experts come on, because if we're talking about these types of businesses, people need to know about 1031 exchanges. I just have Jennifer, your episode is coming up very shortly here. Yay. And that, yes, and that is about entity structure, right? Because people need to know about that.
For sure.
I've had CPAs on talking about, the accounting side of it. So I have those experts that come on. And then the third episode is where my husband and I will talk about hotels themselves. And it's really interesting because I get emails from listeners who say things like, I didn't know normal people could own hotels.
That's a good one. Yeah.
It makes me laugh, but I can see that, because I think most people think, oh, hotels, that's like some big private equity group, or they just don't really.
Trump
yes,
or Wynn, Steve Wynn or Trump. That's what you're thinking. Yeah, those guys with the big rings and a tiger on a leash or something, walking around going, make it gold everywhere, yeah.
Exactly. So some of my favorite episodes, Brian, as you asked, just kind of about the overall podcast, I'll share. I think that the semi-absentee franchise business is very interesting. And there's a broker I've had on, and what he talks about is this is the kind of business that has the systems and the processes, and it's something maybe that you're interested in. And you're probably going to need to spend about 15 hours a week on the business, but it's mostly on the weekends. You've got someone managing it for you. So it is really an investment, but it also there is some involvement. And I think that is really intriguing and interesting. I've also had people on talking about, Amazon fulfillment, e-commerce types of businesses, building online businesses, but a lot of brick and mortar, people buying franchises, people buying convenience stores, starting up businesses. I just love to share those different stories.
Yeah, that's cool. So when it comes to the absentee franchises, what kind of examples have you had people that had really good success with that?
Yeah, so Orange Theory is absolutely one. I have a guy, I haven't released the episode yet because I record so far in advance, but he owned 2 Orange Theory franchises and then ended up selling those and then moving into car washes. So, there's kind of an interesting dynamic there. And then buying another franchise that he's just now getting into that's kind of like a new up and coming. So I've heard people be successful with that. They talk about the challenges are finding the right employees, right? That's actually more challenging than some of the other aspects because the brand helps with marketing and sales and lead generation, but the employee aspect of it can be a challenge.
So I have to ask a silly question. I don't know what Orange Theory is. So
Me either. That's what I was going to ask.
Oh, you don't?
No. It's something I haven't been exposed to down here. So
wow, it actually makes me wonder if the territory is open then. Okay, so Orange Theory are a fitness center, so like a boutique fitness type of franchise, which is extremely popular. The boutique, for one specific area of the population, et cetera.
Yeah, we have something down here called Fitness 19, I think it's called, or something like that. But yeah, I mean, we don't have Orange Theory down here, so the Southern California territory seems like it's pretty wide open.
Yeah, I don't have an Orange Theory here, I don't believe, and that's in the whole Houston Metroplex. We do have, I think we just now got Soul Cycle down here, and that's another type of boutique franchise. They really blew up. I mean, they went from what I was watching an Anthony Robbins show, and it had them and Parker Warby, the eyeglass things, and then I think Uber. Ooh, I'm so sorry. That's my phone.
We are a live show.
I forgot to turn it off. But yeah, so that's interesting about that. So what does Orange Theory, is it spinning, or when you talk about boutique fitness, what type of fitness? Like yoga, or is it a specific type?
Yeah, so in my understanding, I've actually never been in one, but they're everywhere here. So you guys are just helping me understand too. When I run that episode, I need to explain what it is. I thought it was very pervasive across the country. So this is interesting. But yeah, so it would be in a retail, like in a strip mall or something like that, a smaller type of space, certainly not taking the size of like a Lifetime Fitness or any of those big type of places. So smaller. And my understanding is there's an element of cardio and there's an element of lifting weights. And I think it's maybe a 30-minute type of circuit workout.
Oh, okay. Kind of like a Curves. We have something like that for women, and they have a circuit that they have specific machines, and they set you up. You have your time you have to go, and then they just have people show up at their time, and then they limber up, and then they get into the circuit, and then they wipe it down, and they go, and then your workout's done, you go. So that's interesting. I'm going to have to look this up. I'm curious now, because you seem so stoked about it too.
Well, what I thought was so cool is that because you see them everywhere, and then to find someone in tech that owned a couple of them, I think that's kind of cool. Yeah. We talk about a lot of different franchise types. We used to talk about recession resistant, but now we have to talk about COVID resistant, because recession resistant, those rules, just like with the hotels, kind of go out the window with the current situation.
Now people are going to be scared because the gyms were all closed. I mean, I was seeing in one state where they even stopped the sale of seeds and American flags. Like, you can't even do that in, what was it, Michigan? And I'm like, why can't you? Think you'd want them to have seeds to grow things if they needed to, right? Why would they stop that? There's like so many things. I think too, it's just misinformation or something, like we're going to get it right eventually, when the experts come in after all this is said and done and analyze everything. And then I guess we'll have a new rules. So if this ever happens again, we just institute the new plan, right? Based on all the stuff we're finding out now. At least you hope that they'll be doing that. You don't know. Anyway, guys, we've been talking to Nichole Stohler with the RicherGeek.com. You go to therichergeek.com. And if you want to, she has some really cool things on here. She encourages listeners to take the quiz on options to help your money grow. So in order to do that, just go to www.therichergeek.com/quiz. Super simple. And then for more advanced investors looking to learn more about hotel investing, you can they're taking applications for their hotel investment workshop, which if you're listening to this and you're like, wow, this seems like something I really want to get into because the world is changing, but now they've got all this cool information we talked about. You're going to go to www.therichergeek.com/workshop. WORK shop workshop.
We'll have all the links below too, so we'll be able to just click on it.
Yeah, because I can't speak today for whatever reason. Anyway, so we're going to be ending up the show. We're kind of at the end, which I hate because Nichole has such a font of information. But is there anything you want to leave us with about the Richer Geek, or something you have coming up, or just a little tidbit of wisdom, Nichole?
A tidbit of wisdom, I would say, is don't rush into anything. That's the other thing. So don't get, and I have to watch this, right? Because I'm interviewing all these people doing all these cool things. And sometimes I say, well, I want to do that. And I want to do that. And I want to do that. And what you really need to do is think about your situation and what makes sense for you. How much time do you really have? The amount of capital, what's feasible if you live in California versus if you live in Texas. There's a lot of dynamics there. So don't rush into anything. Take your time, but be thoughtful and thinking of, what's available to you and what you could be doing to help your money grow.
Absolutely. That's excellent advice. Well, Tammy, it's the end. We have to bid Nichole goodbye. Will you take us away and give our listeners all the info they need to get so they can hook up with her?
Well, thank you everyone so much for listening in today. And thank you again, Nichole, for being on with us, and Jennifer and Brian for hosting today. I'll have all of Nichole's links on how you can get a hold of her and her quiz and everything in our show notes. And if you do have a question for Leafy, please email me at tammy, Tammy, at leafylegalservices.com, and I will get right back to you. You can follow us on all social media and also on any platform that you can listen to podcasts. We are at Leafy Legal. Thank you again, everyone, for tuning in. I hope you are having a wonderful day and staying healthy, and we will see you next time. Have a great one. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Attention real estate investors and entrepreneurs. Did you know that real estate investors are a primary target for lawsuits? According to the National Survey of the Court data, 25% of Americans risk being sued in their lifetime. However, if you are a real estate investor, you have a 95% chance of being sued in the next 20 years. Leafy Legal Services helps you protect your assets and strategically grow your business and wealth. Leafy Legal Services are experts at the Series LLC and Delaware Statutory Trust, two of the newest and most ideal legal structures for real estate investors. Leafy Legal Services have the most personalized and affordable solutions for setting up LLCs. Property owners are always at risk when it comes to their assets. Anonymity is so important. If you own just a rental house and you own your home, you have to protect yourself and your properties from any potential legal issues. Leafy Legal Services have the right solutions to make sure you are happy and feel secure. They offer cost-effective documentation that suits their clients' needs. For a free consultation and ebook, visit leafylegalservices.com. They are waiting to hear from you. leafylegalservices.com.
Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Don't wait. Take action now. LeafyLegalServices.com. Protect your assets, grow your business, and manage your wealth.